most passionate observer, and I've become a very staunch defender of one version of what happened to the Talwars and the terrible miscarriage of justice as I see it. No, I wanted to have a quick conversation with all of you and then we'll open it up to the audience. I want to start with you, Meghna. What intrigued you? What drew you to this story?
I think like everybody else in the country, I got sucked into it when it first broke, with no intention of making a film on it then 8 years ago. And yes, what flummoxed me was that every 2 months there was a new story. We saw a repetition of all of that, you know, several stories, several theories, contradictions, and I think somewhere there were answers, the questions that needed answers, and there was a closure that was lacking. That's what we've tried to explore with this.
Vishal, you know, to write a script like this, speaking from somebody who also entered it in a neutral way, the mountain of evidence that shows that there's been a miscarriage of justice is so high. You know, can you talk a little bit about your creative process? How did you resist the urge to tilt a story? You know, this is a very, very fair version of this, of different ways that the story was presented. And could you pick one or two things during the course of your, you know, looking at the evidence, which really caught your attention or made you angry at what had happened?
Yeah, actually, you know, like everyone else, you know, I thought that the verdict which has come is absolutely fine. But when I happened to meet accidentally the first investigative officer, and my first question was like कि एक कमरे के 2 मर्डर हो गए एक दीवार के परे और पता नहीं चला. Then he said that we called the you know, those sophisticated audio engineers to do the audio test, and actually the levels were so high that it was possible that no sound could, you know, penetrate over there. So that's where, you know, my interest started, and that's where I met Meghna, and I was busy in Heather. So we started then researching and researching more. Then we met everyone, and you know, things were really were amusing, bizarre, disturbing, and some kind of black humor, you know, was coming out of this tragedy. So I thought, and I'm a great fan of Rashomon of Akira Kurosawa. So I thought that it's the best way to write this script and present this script on screen. And of course, you know, my own judgment, sometimes, you know, my own feelings used to come in way. But we wanted to be very fair to all the investigative teams. And the last meeting which happened, it's the culmination of, you know, of our research, of our meetings with them, of the things are in public domain, all the things which were said in court and during the trial. So nothing that which we have, you know, added from our own side. So it was a very painful journey, and it scares me to, you know, think that someday if anyone, you know, gets sucked into a system which we have, so what can happen?
Irfan, you got to play, you know, in many ways the most crucial role, because Ashwin Kumar, you know, even that first investigative officer, even in the real life version, does actually try to unravel a lot of the speculative things that ended up making the Talwars become the accused. So again, before I get a little bit into the emotion of your role, when you were presented all the evidence, can you talk of a few things that captured your attention that outside of the artistic framework, you know, you would want justice for?
Actually, the way there's a perception about the case, common perception, and it's been, you know, the sources are different, like, you know, some articles or news coverage, and, you know, so we already have a perception. And when I read the script, there was shocking things, shocking revelations, which really, you know, which caught me, like, you know, I was just pulled into it, and you know, I got interested into it. Otherwise, murder mystery, kisi real case pe, you don't really, you know, it becomes sometimes, it becomes a source of sensationalism, you know. But this was so true and so near and so frightening. So, you know, it just got me interested, and I did whatever I had to do to do the role. I met the person, you know, whatever questions I had, I already had my own, first time when Meghna told me about the story, so whatever questions I had, I asked her, and she, she responded to it.
All of you've produced such a complex film, Irrfan, again, because you've had such a meaty role to play in it. What impact do you hope that the film would have on audiences?
For me, why the film is important, it's a very unfortunate case. What you might think that they are the killers or not the killers, guilty or not guilty, but both ways, it's a very, it's a tragic incident. But this tragic incidents give us a chance to look at our system, how, on different departments, how we deal with crisis. That is much more important for me.
Konkona, coming to you, again, a very, very difficult role to play. One of the accusations I remember at Nupur Talvar was that she's such a stoic woman, and partly why everyone believes that she's the murderess because she didn't cry enough in public. So when you were examining her character, can you pick out some of the things that made you understand who this character that you should play is? What were the indicators that you picked on?
It's interesting that you ask that, because I feel like, at least when I approached this script, that that this script didn't really get into a character study. It didn't really, because it's not like a biopic or, it doesn't really get into the characterization or the motivation or what makes a person tick or what is the psyche. I actually didn't get into that, but I found it very interesting as a performer to have to kind of convey at one level a guilt and at another level an innocence. So there's always this ambiguity. And there's this thin line between the two that you have to maintain. And all of that was there for me in the script. All of that was there already existing in the script, which is such a well-researched document in itself. And of course, Meghna and her direction, and she was clear about what she wanted and how she wanted to treat it. So we were really like pawns, the parents, in different situations, highlighting different things according to the investigation.
Yeah, that's well put, actually. They're really just pawns of different persons' perceptions of what happened. What were some of the most difficult directorial decisions that you had to make? What were the most challenging moments in this film for you?
I don't think anything could have been more challenging than filming the actual murder. Because you have to do it twice, not once. You have to do it with different weapons, different perpetrators. But the one to die is always the girl and the man. That didn't change. That wasn't easy. Because the film needed to be neutral, I needed to be objective. And sometimes that got difficult to maintain because you are human. You do react to the information that is facing you. But there was no other way to make this film.
Vishal, again, as a writer, creating doubt is perhaps the best and greatest artistic impact that one can have. Would you share, maybe the last scene, because it's a very complex legal case. How did you pull it together, and how did that, I'm unsure, did that incident really happen? Or is that a literary device that you thought up?
That last meeting?
Yeah.
Actually, it happened. And since we were not present in that meeting, so we didn't know, but we met all the stakeholders in that. And in fact, the person, the second CBI team, we were not able to meet for various reasons. But during the shoot, we got a chance to meet the second CBI team. And when we met them, so, all these things came up. And we couldn't show a trial because, it's sub judice case, and we didn't want to, take the judiciary. So this meeting actually happened, where both the teams were, made to sit across the table and convince each other, where the decision was taken to file a closure report. And that closure report was rejected by the court, as happened over here. So I imagine, reimagine, and all these terms like missionary positions and all these were, when we were talking, doing research, these all terms came from them and nothing came from us. And during the trial, yeah.
In fact, Irrfan, one of the great strands in this story is the cultural collision that happens, wife swapping, sleepover. I mean, so much of the honor killing idea really came out of a complete lack of understanding of different cultures. When you were playing your role, and you said you met the original investigator as well, can you help us understand that emotional character of that person? You know, is it someone who's reserved, detached? You start off as a cynic, you end up becoming very involved in the film. You know, can you explain that journey a little bit?
I think I saw him as if he was on a level in his career where, you know, he wanted to do, you know, other things, you know, move on to much more important or interesting cases, maybe, you know, because your job, you know, it makes you what you are. So you have to keep moving on in your you know, whatever you're doing. So maybe he wanted to evolve as an investigator, and at that time, a murder mystery which has already been and he knows that after 6 months, if he would be going, what kind of evidence he would find, you know, all those things. So he was almost like cynical about his own department. You know, the department is created for investigation, but when they go at the scene, it's already late. So there was a kind of cynicism, you know. But when it's his responsibility to find the answer, he's, you know, he has his capability and his talent and, you know, his sincerity, which is. But once he's sucked in, then, you know, he feels the same pain again. You know.
Can you share one thing, both Meghna and Vishal, that you left out of the film? You know, I'm sure you know a lot of the facts now. Can you pick something, Vishal, that you could not accommodate into the film? And Meghna, you as well?
The few things, you know, which we were told in the personal meetings with the officers, and which were really disturbing, but we had no evidence to back that us for. So we had to leave that out. And we cannot even share over here.
Meghna, can you share something more factual than that?
Yeah, I can.
I understand what you're saying, Vishal.
So we haven't exactly left it out, but we haven't dwelled on it because eventually that matter kind of got dropped even as a concrete piece of evidence. The whole issue of Aarushi being locked in her room, the key being under the bed, how did the key reach there, where is the key now? You know, a whole big hoopla was made of it at one point, and then by the time we reached trial, that, you know, facet didn't even figure, as with the router, as with the telephonic loop. So there is things like this which we are aware of. It's not that we don't know, but, you know, you need to do some things for cinema which are more impactful. So that is the stuff that we had to pick and choose, but that's about all we've done with the data.
There's one particular character I'd like to share with the audience as well, was a man called Mr. Dahiya, who was in Ahmedabad and wrote a kind of analysis report of the scene of crime. And till date, I think that is one of the ugliest and most speculative reports that I have ever read. And it is truly a scurrilous piece of, you know, unethical piece of work. And a lot of the second team's investigation was built on that report. And if you read that, I think it should be made public for reading. It'll again explain how vulnerable we are to a justice system that is so capricious.